Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Mr. Cobalt, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about the mole. No, not that furry creature that digs holes into the ground, but actually, a mole is a term that we use in chemistry. So let's get into this. So, a mole is often referred to as the chemist's dozen. So, if you know what a dozen is, you know that that is referring to 12. The number 12, and so when we talk about dozens of things, we're usually talking about 12 things, right? So if I talk about, a dozen eggs, then I'm referring to 12 eggs, or a dozen loaves of bread, that would be 12 loaves of bread. So it's just a name that we give to a number in order to conveniently talk about certain amounts of things, right? So it's easier in some contexts to talk about dozens of things rather than the actual number of those things, okay? So the mole in chemistry is the same thing, the same way. When we talk about a mole, we refer to that as we're using that name to refer to a particular number. And that number is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. That is the mole. And it's also referred to as Avogadro's number after Amadeo Avogadro, the Italian scientist who lived between the ages of 1776 and 1856. These dates here. And so he had a hand in developing or coming up with this number, calling it the mole. Now, where did we get this number? Well, the number is the value that comes from the number of atoms in exactly 12 grams of pure C12. That is what this number is. The value of this number is referring to the number of atoms, the number of atoms that are in 12 grams of pure C12. So C12 is the atom carbon that has a mass number of 12. So it's going to have 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and so it has that mass number. So if we had a pure sample of carbon 12 and that sample was 12 grams of mass, then we would have this number of carbon 12 atoms in that mass. And so that's where that number comes from. So 12 grams of C12 is equal to 1 mole of C12 atoms, and that's 6.022 times 10 to the 12 C12 atoms. So rather than talk about 6.022 times 10 to the 23 all the time, right, or multiples thereof, it's a lot easier to talk about moles. And so this refers to particles. And again, when we talk about moles, we could talk about moles of anything, particles of anything. So if I have 1 mole of cars, that means I have 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd cars. If I have a mole of eggs, that means I have 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd eggs. So I can use the mole or Avogadro's number to refer to anything, any particle. But in chemistry, we often use this to refer to tiny subatomic particles or atomic particles or molecules, right? So a mole of molecules, a mole of atoms, things like that. Okay, so that is the mole. Now, you might be asking yourself, why call that number the mole? Like, where did that come from? And to answer that question, we have to go to Latin. And so, historically speaking, and I'll succinctly tell you a little bit of the history, but basically, it refers to the Latin words moles and molecula. So, moles refers to a mass, and molecula is the Latin word for a small mass. And so, historically speaking, when people referring to the macroscopic world, and they want to talk about mass from a macroscopic point of view, they would use the Latin word mole. So if I'm talking about, like, if I have a pot of water, I might refer to that mass in terms of this Latin word moles. I wouldn't use molecula for small masses, right? And so over time, historically, the word mole or came about from the Latin term. So the Latin term moles ended up becoming what is used to refer to Avogadro's number, the mole. Okay, and then of course you can see molecula here. That is where we get the word molecule, right? Molecule, molecula. So small mass, small particle. So that's where mole comes from. So the Latin word for mass, mass from a macroscopic point of view, which fits because we use moles to refer to large substances, right? So what is the mass of 1 mole of carbon? Well, that's 12 grams. 12 grams is something you could actually visibly see and work with, right? So that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we call Avogadro's number the mole. Again, it's not referring to that furry creature. It's referring back to the Latin word for mass that was used at the time. I hope this was interesting. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share, subscribe to my channel. But when you do, make sure you click the bell so you can be notified by all the videos I put out. And finally, put a comment down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Ask me questions. Give me suggestions of what you would like me to do in my future videos. So thanks for joining me and have a great day.